If you're waiting for the economy, the market, or your confidence to align perfectly, you're gonna be waiting forever. The successful ones make moves before they feel ready. And I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that without risking everything. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you if you want your money working hard for you, so you have to work so hard for that money. You want to become work optional, where you have enough passive income coming in, where you work because you want to, not because you have to. If you haven't done so already, go buy the Work Optional Blueprint that's just been released on Amazon, became an Amazon bestseller. This can be in your hands for you right now. Be sure to go to get your copy today. So recently, I've noticed that there's a lot of fear in the market, and it's not just you guys, it's not just the listeners, it's almost anybody I've been meeting. And it's fascinating because it's not just fear, it's fear of moving, fear of doing anything different. It's kind of like, you're standing in a boat and, you ever been like those little boats, whether rowboat or canoe or whatever it might be, and it's a little shaky. And then of course the waves start coming, right? The waves, you feel those waves coming. And so what do? If you're standing up, you're trying to brace yourself and you're just holding on the sides, hoping you won't fall out of the boat. Hope it doesn't capsize and tip over. All in the meanwhile, there's a dock right next to you. And what I see a lot of times people happening is that instead of trying to step off and get on the dock and kind of see what's going on and then making a different move, they just stay put. They stay put. They just keep doing the same thing, which is the exact worst thing to do, right? And think about it, anything in life. If your marriage is on the rocks, if that's rocky, right? Do you just do nothing and hope that it gets better? No. If your kid's in trouble, do you do nothing and hope it gets better? No. If your health is in trouble, do you say, you know what? Forget that doctor. I'm not even going to go and see that doctor right now. I'm just going to hope I can sleep it off, right? By the way, we obviously had a podcast guest who tried to sleep it off with 3 heart attacks in 1 week, right? You probably heard that episode. And so all these things, it just doesn't work. And I think of the quote by Will Rogers, where he says, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And obviously, we don't want to be sitting there. We don't want to be the ones that aren't proactive, because the people that just are passive or sit back and watch life happen, they will not only miss opportunities, but they're going to actually cost themselves more money than those that take action, even if they take a little bit of risk with it along the way. And so I want to talk about that. Is how do those successful investors overcome that fear? How do they get past that? How do you do that? That's what I'm talking about today. Now, I was actually, I was reading a book here recently called The Art of Winning by Bill Belichick. You guys remember him? He coached Tom Brady with the New England Patriots. He was also assistant coach to Bill Parcells of the New York Giants. Great coach in his own right. And just this morning, I was reading a chapter about this, and he was talking about confidence, right? And how do you get confidence? And his thing is like, I know I'm going to tick off my publisher because I'm not going to give you some good standard answer that everybody wants to give you, because the truth is you're not born with confidence. You're not even going to find a way to quote unquote develop confidence, in the sense that you're just going to make it, right? You can't just talk yourself into confidence. It just doesn't work that way. You can visualize all day long. You still won't be any more confident. And he said the real way to create more confidence is through repetition, right? It's through practice. And so he talked about his own team, the New England Patriots, where they were trying to go against the Minnesota Vikings, who had one of the best offenses, right? But they also had a great defense. In fact, no team had scored more than 17 points on them during that time. Now, they could have said, let's change into our running game and do this. But what they had just realized is that their passing game was excellent. And everybody knew it. Everybody knew Tom Brady was great. They all knew that their passing game was excellent. And so Bill had a choice. He says, okay, either we try to mix it up and throw them off and try to trick them, or we lean into our strengths, something that we've practiced over and over and over again. Because here's what happened. Over those previous weeks, they had some pretty critical wins. Those wins came because they had practiced relentlessly their passing game. And then they went to do it in the real life game. And as they were successful with it, they built their level of confidence. They got more and more confident doing that. And that's the big the big difference is that it's through repetition that you gain more confidence. Actually, interesting. Just earlier today, and I say today, this is for you a few weeks back, but earlier, and before I recorded this, I was doing a presentation. By the way, I barely showed up to it because they wanted me to use an app to do my presentation, and I hate apps. Don't make me download an app. I nearly backed out of doing that presentation to their group. But I said, okay, this seems like a good group, good quality group. I'm going to get on. So I get on, I tell my story. This story you guys have heard 100 times, right? You heard the story about, about my dad, and that my dad did everything right, and yet it still wasn't enough. It didn't lead to retirement, right? And if he was debt free and everything. And so that's what led me to going this alternative investment path that, of course, did work. And going back to this point of confidence, even how I had to do it a second time because I went broke during the recession, had to build it again and do it again. And I also done it as an actual, as they say in the book, a blueprint over and over again for our clients to help replicate the same things. And by the time I got done, I mean, it was really for me. I mean, even though I was putting thought and effort into it about what are those money myths, some of the key ones I talk about on the show, but you've got way more by doing this podcast. I just kind of gave them the highlights. And I really appreciated this woman, Shannon. She came on, and I thought she was gonna have a question. And instead of a question, she said, Chris, I just got to say that that I was just drawn in by your stories. Like, this was incredible. I love this today. And so she complimented me on how good it was. And she's like, I got to follow your podcast because I want to get more. So Shannon, if you're here, shout out to you. But anyways, I mean, that meant the world to me because just before, at the very beginning of this, I was thinking about this same topic of confidence. And I was thinking about even doing podcasts. And I told them, I said, it's interesting that I'm even doing this because I was an introvert. I mean, if you would have talked to me in high school, and if you're somebody that went to high school with me, you probably know, I had a really hard time breaking out of a shell. I was not confident at all. I was scared to death to even talk to one. Well, I could talk to one person. I would get a little bit nervous. Two people, that's a group. Oh my goodness, forget about it, right? That would cause me to sweat. I mean, when they would ask you to do class presentations, that would be the most nerve-wracking thing ever. I could take a test all day long. Don't make me talk to a group, right? Because I was scared. I was scared of criticism. I was very shy. I had lots of thoughts in my head, but I wouldn't verbalize those thoughts. It wasn't really till almost my last year of high school when I really started to embody of wanting to break out a little bit more that I started to open up. And it really wasn't until college I became much more able to be outgoing, only because, once again, practiced it over and over and over again. And that's what successful investors do. They don't back off. They don't wait for the perfect time. They say, the right place is here. The right time is now, right? All we have is today. You'll hear people often say, like, the best time to plant a tree was like 20 years ago, but the next best time is today, right now. And that's the thing, is that those that are successful are willing to break through that fear. And there's always fear, right? In fact, if you let fear cripple you, you'll probably make the opposite decisions of what you should be making. I'll tell you, every time I've led a decision based on fear, and that even includes inaction, which is still an action. Inaction, if I did that based on fear, it usually leads to nothing good. I've seen that happen even in my own company. When I've delayed making the hard decisions, and I put it off and put it off, at some point it gets worse. It kind of reminds me way back in the day, almost 20 years ago, one of my friends, Garrett White, he was talking about the listening to the whisper, right? He says, if you don't listen to the whisper, it's going to, that voice is going to get louder eventually. If you don't listen to the loud voice at that point, then you'll get a 2x4 across the face. If you don't listen to the 2x4, you get hit by a Mack truck, right? And it goes on and on. At some point, it has to come to a head. And I've noticed that some of the most costly decisions I've ever made is when I don't make a decision. Because indecision is still a decision. Just like inaction is still an action. It's still a decision, and that doesn't mean anything good. Now, I'm all about being still, getting that quiet place, calming those fears. That is necessary, right? Get into a place where you can calm your fears a little bit. Doesn't mean that the fear's gone, but at least get to a point where you can be a little bit more level headed. And I'm bringing this up because, I was speaking to a guy recently, and I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not saying that there haven't been people that had better perfect times than him, but this was one of those moments where it's like, this is the most perfect time ever for him to make a change. One, he got laid off. I'll tell you, if somebody gets laid off and then all of a sudden money becomes available from their 401k, this is the time to act, like right now. Now he was thinking about what he's thinking about was starting a new business, which I was all for. I'm like, that's great. You can make way more money in business than just doing passive investments. And so, as we're talking, and I told him, it's like, listen, like even if you decide today's not your day, you know, it's gotta be a yes or a no. And if you can't decide, then it's an automatic no. And so he was like, I'm trying to think about it. And he's like, I'm an overanalyzer. I'm sorry, and I was like, don't be sorry. Like I do the same thing. I can overanalyze to death sometimes. And it got to a point, he just said like, yeah, just, the timing just doesn't seem right to do anything right now. And it wasn't even about the money, guys. Like I could have said, hey, we'll charge you $100,000 to do this. Now he might have balked a little bit more. Let's be honest, right? The good news is it's not even anywhere close to 100,000 that we charge. We're pretty reasonable considering. But I was like, and even then, if we charge you $100,000 and you make 200,000, is that still a good investment? Let's be honest. So, anyways, most people are like, I put 100,000 in my mutual fund with my financial advisor. I hope to make 10 grand. 110,000. Woohoo! That's so stupid. Anyways, he's just saying like, yeah, like it's so hard because, with no work, there's no stable income. I got this new business to start. And I know I probably have to have some reserves and this and that. And I just don't know which way to turn. And if I do these investments, is it going to work? And I told him, I was like, okay, well, yeah, if you're starting a business right now, then this probably may not be the best time. There might be too much on your plate. And he's like, well, actually, this is the off season. My business doesn't get busy till summertime. Okay, so you're saying actually, if you were to do it right now would be the ideal time. Yeah. If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. And you also just lost your job, which means you have a lot of time, right? Yeah. He's like, I'm not really certain what to do. Okay, got it. So you have plenty of abundance of time. You have money that you can actually be using to invest that can even provide an income stream for you right now. Yeah, but I'm just uncertain. I'm not sure how much money I need to hold on this. He was looking for like the crystal ball to tell him what to do, which of course our crystal balls are all broken, aren't they? And I told him, I said, well, here's the thing. Like, if you can't make a decision, the answer is no. Like, you're not ready for us because you'll just freak yourself out, right? That won't work. You gotta have enough faith to actually take action. He's like, yeah, you're probably right. Don't hate me. I'm like, no, I'm not going to hate you. This is normal human nature. I do the same thing, right? We're not any different. We're all part of the human club. But the problem is that still your life doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any easier. It doesn't become any more apparent by doing nothing, And I even asked him, it's like, and I get it. Like if you're starting a business, you're probably being coached by somebody else and you don't want to be overcoached because if you have too many voices in your head, people telling you what to do, it can get pretty confusing, can it? It's like, yeah, but no, I don't have anybody helping me. I'm like, okay, so you're overanalyzing. You obviously have a lot of different ideas. You're not sure what to turn. You want guidance, but you're not willing to take the guidance. Like, you guys know where I'm going with this, right? Like, the timing's right. I mean, it's not certain timing for him, but if he's ever going to do investing, why not now? Two, he's looking for guidance. He's looking for somebody to bounce ideas off of. Obviously, he's like trying to verbally process the different things. Wouldn't it be good to have somebody that he could trust to say, "Hey, I don't even have a skin in this game in the sense that I don't have a horse in this race, right? Like I don't have any attachment. I can kind of look at this from a more rational perspective versus getting emotional and stuff like that." And he doesn't have that either. And he doesn't have a community to help him as well, right? People around him that could help out. By the way, some of those people might be able to help him get a new job if he wants to get a new job or whatever. I mean, there's all that kind of stuff, right? And And he's had the money to create passive income now to help slow the bleed. And I told him, I was like, listen, we're not even going to touch your money. In fact, we might keep more money liquid than what you were planning on. We might keep more money on the side just to be safe. And yeah, you can have, infinite banking, things like that to help you. But make sure it's still liquid, but making some money. But even then, we probably would say no infinite banking for now until we start getting that cash flow on a consistent basis. And this is the thing, guys. This is the equivalent of you sitting in your driveway, waiting to go to your destination because you were hoping to wait till all the lights turn green between here and your destination. Then you'll drive out of the driveway. The truth is that the lights are always changing. There's always movements, right? There's always things happening. There's always going to be, a market, ups and downs, news coming out of all sorts. Trump saying something stupid again, right? Or doing something crazy with about tariff wars and things like that. There's going to be something coming out about Elon Musk at some point, I'm sure. There's going to be something coming out about the feds and whether or not they're going to raise or lower interest rates. And yeah, on and on and on. There's always things. This has always been the case. Yeah, with more information, it makes it worse. This should be the reason why you need to make sure you're not just sitting around hanging on to the side of that boat, hoping it's not going to tip. Because the truth is, those waves are only getting bigger. And if you're in that boat when it tips, you're going to go under. Step off, get off on the dock, reassess, and find out that the waves are going to come regardless. Let's get a better boat. Let's get into a better boat and use that. And so don't wait for all the lights to turn green before you leave your driveway, right? Drive along the way. If the light turns red, great. We'll deal with that when we get there. And I'll tell you, the biggest confidence I've seen with even our own clients are the ones that are willing to still take the faith, take the risk. And a huge shout out to them because that faith is not just about doing the investment. In some cases, the first time they've ever done an investment that's outside of stocks and mutual funds. But on top of that, they even got friends and family or colleagues that think it's crazy and they still do it. And those are the people that will win every time. Do you think Warren Buffett gives a crap about what you think he does with his money? Not at all. He's going to do it whether you like it or not. In fact, he does it even when the masses say he's an idiot until they all lose money and then they think he's genius, right? And by the way, even right now, I've talked about Warren Buffett putting more and more cash on the sidelines, 381.7 billion as of the end of September. That's a huge chunk of money. The most he's ever had, 30% of his money. But in that process, he was still investing. He was much more picky about it. He was very selective about where he invested, but he was still investing. And by the way, he even invested using an insurance company's money instead of his own. It sounds like infinite banking, doesn't it? Crazy. But he was doing that too. He's still investing, but he's not investing where everybody else says to invest. He's not investing in corporate America as much, right? He did buy into like an Occidental Petroleum. He bought into that company because he knew that natural gas, probably something coming where he's getting a good deal on it. He waits for the good deals. But it doesn't mean he just waits. He doesn't just sit on the sidelines and do nothing. So there's that balance, right? You got to have the right balance. Yes, you can analyze stuff, but don't analyze to the point where you do nothing. That's when you know you're not analyzing anymore. Now you're an emotional creature. You think you're being logical, but you're just being emotional. You're just thinking like, I can't figure it out. Well, it could be because you're lost in your own head. You have to get out of your own head to take action. And that, my friends, that is how you build confidence. It's practicing again and again and again. It doesn't mean you have to invest again and again and again. I mean, obviously you have to at some point. That's the only way to gain experience. I'll tell you, I've seen so many, including some of you listeners, that I've talked to over the years that have talked about doing your first investment, haven't done it. Still to this day, you say you're going to do it, but then you don't do it. Or you might try one, but then you pick the worst one, right? You pick the worst one. I don't know why. Because you're so scared of losing money. Well, actually, I do know why. You're so scared of losing money, naturally because that law of attention, because you're scared of losing, all you focus on is losing and therefore lose. It's the same thing with a team, right? Any kind of sports team. Those that play not to lose are the ones that still lose. It's the ones that play to win, that fully expect to win, continue to win. And it doesn't mean that they don't get beat at different times. It doesn't mean they won't have losses, but they can still be a very big winning team that can create a dynasty. You can also become your own winning team. And I don't want you to think that this is very platitude filled, right? This is not the point. I'm trying to really bring this home that this is not just about investing. This is about everything you do in life. Because is it possible, and I'm talking to you, especially if you have a hard time making that hard decision. That decision that you know is probably the right one, but it's the hard one to make. And I've had to make many of them. And I tell you, I'm the kind of person that I'm non-confrontational. I don't like to make hard decisions. Yet when I make them, oh, it feels good. Even when it's hard, it feels good because I know I get that confidence boost. That to me, that's where the magic happens. And that's when confidence starts to gain. That's when you gain more experience. The only difference between you and me, and I'm talking about you in general, I know that there could be exceptions to this rule, is that I've just done more investing and I've probably failed more times than you have. But I've also watched other people's failures, learn from that and learn from their failures, essentially kind of like studying the game film, if you're to equate it to football, right? Studying what happened with them and figured out how do I apply that for myself. And sometimes I still made some of those mistakes, just not as big. And as a result, I gain more wisdom, I gain more experience. And that's how you become a better investor. The truth is, you'll never be 100% perfect because you'll just be a lucky investor. It's when you actually have some of those losses, brush yourself off, get up, and then keep moving forward and say, hey, it's okay because I didn't throw all my money in that one deal. Like some people I've watched do that, especially when they don't have guidance from mentors and things like that. They'll make bad decisions where they will lose everything. No, you're not going to do that, especially if you have somebody in your corner there to help you out, to help see what you may not be seeing, to help you guide you along in that path to say, hey, have you noticed this? Have you noticed that you have this kind of tendency, this behavior? By the way, have you noticed that if you're trying to put all your money in one basket, that might be risky? Have you ever thought about diversifying a little bit better, right? That's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of guidance you need. So I get it. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. Confidence is not built in a vacuum. It requires you to take action, even if it's just the first step, right? How many times you heard, sometimes to see the whole staircase, you got to take that first step, right? Because you don't always see all the stairs at the top, right? Same thing with hiking. Again, I'm using a lot of analogies because it's all truth, right? It's no different here with investing. You just got to be willing to take that first step. Many times when we get clients that are scared, we'll often just tell them, like, listen, like, you don't have to do anything, right? You can just keep analyzing for months, years. And I've had clients do it, by the way. But I'm like, could you at least do one investment? Doesn't matter where. Do something, right? Find something that you feel comfortable doing and do that. And just, even if you just say, hey, I'm going to do a little bit, just to test it out, right? Just to see. It's like dipping your toe in the pool before you go take a swim, right? Is the water cold or not? How does it feel? Okay, it feels okay. It feels kind of warm. Maybe I'll put the rest of my foot in. Okay, not bad. Let's get to my legs. And for you guys, that's where it gets really risky. Then you get to the upper body, right? And then you keep going. That's how it works. And even in investing, sometimes you have to ease into it. But as you do it more and more, that faith builds more and more. That is what successful investors do. That's the difference between someone who wins and somebody who's perpetually always hoping to win. Guys, you should not be living on hopium. You should not be hoping to win. It requires you to get on the court and play. You can do it yourself, of course. And that's a great way to gain experience. That's what I did, right? I went and tried to do it on my own and it was a mess, right? But how much better it could be if you have guidance, have a coach to help you along as well, to help you read the plays and know what's going on. Maybe it can help you call those plays and be able to know what's happening on the field, what can allow you to have the best odds of success. That's why you have coaches. That's why you have mentors. That's why I hire mentors and coaches for that very same thing, to break me out of my brain, to get out of my head and onto the field. That is what we need. So anyways, guys, if there's any way I can help you, of course, you can always reach out to us, moneyripples.com. But just remember, the best way to gain confidence, the best way to overcome this really analysis paralysis and not playing full out is to just take that step, that first step, get on the floor and get ready and start playing. That is how you build confidence. Aren't born with it. You won't talk yourself into it. It's merely just getting out, doing it again and again and again. And with more confidence, with more repetition comes more confidence, and that comes more success. So go and make it a wonderful and prosperous week. We'll see you later.